Building is one of the most integral parts of Azur Lane, bringing the hearts of many around the world to build some overly proportional waifus or some illegal lollies they lust over in their alone time. Though if one is unlucky in obtaining their beloved, one may become enraged and start losing their ways, becoming one with the pay-to-win faction. And with around 600 ships in the game and rising, it's easy for one to fall from such grace. So I am here to take a stand and change the way you see Azur Lane by eliminating the use of wisdom cubes in order to show that one should show joy with what they already have. This means that during this quest, I'm unable to build, do cube analysis projects, or make any PR ships. The goal? Completing the main story relying on purchasable and droppable ships only. The quest is not going to be an easy one, but it will be for the greater good of the Azur Lane community. I'm your Commander Vulcan, and this is the Cubeless Warrior Challenge. Welcome to episode 6 of the Cubeless Warrior Challenge. I'm excited to be here. Hopefully y'all are too. Today is going to be a relatively big day. We don't got a lot of events, but we're going to be making some huge steps in progress. Main goals for today is going to be completing chapters 9, 10, and 11 in the campaign, possibly chapter 12 if our ships can handle it and if I have enough commander level, but if not, it's fine. And then after that, we're going to be doing some Swirling Cherry Blossoms War Archive farming. After that, we're going to be doing some Operation Siren. We're going to be completing the Operation Siren campaign because I haven't done that yet. And then we're going to be possibly doing some abyssal fights and seeing where I land. We're going to be going over some Gear Lab stuff as well. So that's the agenda for today. Make sure you guys stick around till the end of the video so you know who the winner of guessing the cubes in the cube tribute jar is. Hopefully I didn't forget anything important. Future me will probably conquer that if that comes to pass. But for now, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the things I did in my off time, just really quickly. So between the last episode and this episode, there were a couple of mini events and mini games that happened. Let's start with the major mini event that ran, which was the Winter Pathfinder event featuring Koibyshev. The way the event worked was that there were easy, medium, and hard stages, and you just had to consecutively farm those stages to earn points. And the more points you earn, the more rewards you got, up to like 60,000 points. So from that, we ended up getting a couple of light cruiser gun prints. So we were able to make this light cruiser gun that I'll put up on the screen. And then I also got a tier 5 tech box, which gave me a steam catapult, and along with various other rewards, mainly purple plates, blue plates, and silver plates from just farming the stages, and then a bit of gold on the side. From the mini games, they mainly featured Chinese ships, so we ended up getting Ting An, who's like an ammunition ship. We got Anshan and Fushan, which I believe they're both destroyers. Anshan does have a retrofit that does allow her to become a main fleet ship. I don't think we will necessarily be using her for like endgame content, but I think for farming purposes, I think Anshan will be a pretty good pickup. Probably not going to prioritize leveling her up now because we have a lot of other ships to kind of prioritize that I'll get into later. Now, in terms of the ship progress and ship levels, we are kind of in this sort of transitory phase where all the ships, or most of the ships that I'm using right now, are going to be filtered out for more niche or just straight up better units. For example, Hiryu, Soryu, we're probably going to replace some by the time the next episode rolls around for Enterprise and Hornet 2. So I've been leveling up Hornet 2 and some other ships on the side like Ayanami Retro here, also Independence Retrofit as well. Once we get Enterprise and Hood, we'll level them up as well. I've also got Helena meta and Arizona meta, and I've started leveling them up. We got a lot of ships that are slowly leveling up that aren't quite to the power level of our current fleet. So I think today is going to be the last day we run with our current fleet setup that we were using before. And then after today, we should be able to pop off. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and do the campaign, specifically chapter 9 for now. We are a little behind in the campaign since I didn't really do any campaign in the last episode. I think these earlier chapters are going to be pretty easy for my mobbing and bossing fleet, So we should be able to just full auto. Pretty excited to do these stages because for chapters 9 and onward, the oil cap starts to kick in for these levels and also the clearing rewards. So every run you do, you're going to be getting a lot of gold, and then you're going to be wasting less oil, which means you can actually start using these higher levels to level up your ships instead of relying on the oil commission and the dormitory. In terms of gear and ships in Chapter 9, there's not really any gear worth farming in Chapter 9. There's a couple of unique ships in Chapter 9 though, one of them being Mizuki, I believe she's on 9.4, and Nicholas, who is on 9.3, which doesn't really help me for the end game, but if I do end up getting them on my first few runs, then I guess that'll be nice. It can help fill up the collection and then help us gather some faction tech points. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some of the ships I want to get in the future and kind of like the plans I have, because they kind of changed. Now, before, I originally wanted to get all of the ships that were accessible to me, but I'm starting to realize that going for all of the ships that I want or potentially could be useful for my squad, it's a little time consuming, and we won't have enough boolins to kind of limit break everyone. Since that's the case, I think I should just hard focus on the units that I know I'll 100% use, which are going to be Enterprise and Hood whenever we get them. We'll probably limit break Noshiro as well, and then after that we can start going into separate directions in terms of what ships to limit break. Because before I was like limit breaking ships that I could use or I thought I was going to use, which I ended up not using. For example, I fully limit broken Akagi and Kaga, and yes, Kaga did serve me well, but Akagi I kind of just limit broken, and she's been on the bench ever since. But we kind of have to rethink our strategy when it comes to sort of at least limit breaking ships. I think at this point though, and into the future, since we have the EXP stages and the oil cap and stuff, we don't have to worry too much about levels. You might think like maybe I should take my time with this challenge, and you know, on one hand you're right, but on another hand it gets to a point where I'm not gonna really be doing much during my quest here, during the challenge, because we're gonna be hitting a lot of brick walls. So optimizing my fleet for the end game, I think, is the way to go. So those of you that don't know what good farming stages there are for the later chapters, I know I talked about good farming stages in the past where you can get gear, but I'm going to focus more on the gold and EXP and cognitive chips aspect, because that's basically what you're going to be grinding as you shift your way towards the mid to the end game. So if you're a fairly newer mid-game player, I would say farming 9-1 is pretty okay. Reason being is that the stages are going to be easier, and you're going to be getting the guaranteed clearing rewards, so you're going to be getting a good chunk of coins, and then you can also start leveling up your ship levels there as well. And then once you get strong enough, I recommend farming up 11-1, because I've heard that it is a pretty good stage to farm up EXP for the amount of oil cost you have. In terms of coins, you kind of just want to farm an X-4 stage, and what I mean by that is chapter number -4, so 12-4, 11-4. I don't think it really matters, but the higher level or the higher chapter, the more coins you get. My recommendation, if you're gonna farm up for coins, is you either go 14-4 if you're an endgame player and if you can handle it, and if you don't care about leveling up ships too much. You can also farm up in 13-4 as well if your ships aren't strong enough for 14-4 autoplay. 13-4 is relatively easy if you have leveled up ships, and then 12-4 is probably the best stage to farm up coins for players that don't have top-notch gear or top-notch units. And then it also gives a good amount of EXP as well. Yeah, the ships are weaker and you're getting less EXP, but that also means you can level up weaker ships that you have instead of leveling up ships that are like between like 120 and 125 most likely. And then for cognitive chips, I've heard that farming up 12-1 is probably your best bet since it's the earliest stage where you can farm cognitive chips, and then it would also reduce the amount of oil that you would use per each run since the oil cap for that level specifically is lower than the ones above it. So we're going to be moving on to chapter 10. Again, there's not really any gear you should be fishing for in chapter 10, but there is a couple of ships that you could go for. I believe on 10-4 you could get Jinsu from the boss node, and then on 10-3 you can also grab St. Louis, who I believe both are story locked. So if you want any of the two ships, then you can go ahead and grab it. There's going to be a lot of suicide boats that come across. Specifically for 10-1 for the boss, there's a substantially increased amount. So it's actually highly recommended you bring a couple battleships so that your main fleet doesn't completely get shredded by them. In my situation, we're only running one battleship here on my mob fleet, but I'm hoping that with my substantially increased levels, we should be able to kind of just power through the boss fleet and tank all the shots, or tank all the hits. Another thing I forgot to mention about chapters 9, 10, and 11 is that the majority of the bosses, at least from what I've seen, they move a lot. The bosses tend to move a lot. So for 8-4, we were fighting Nizuki, and then she was just basically moving in a circle. So converging torpedo bombers actually don't do too well IMO. If you do end up using converging torpedo bombers for these bosses, I recommend at least using a swordfish or having some kind of slow or stun into the mix for your team comp, so then those converging torpedo bombers will land. And it seems like we won that level relatively easily. I mean, our flagship took a little bit of damage, but I think all things considered, that was a very clean run. So I think chapter 10 is going to be smooth sailing for us. Alrighty, so we're going to move into chapter 11. I'm not sure how we're going to perform here. We were losing a lot of HP, but I was on full auto, so it should be no problem. I think the mob fleet here might struggle because I am running Arizona as flagship and I refuse to awaken her. But we'll see how we do on auto. If we start to die, then I'll switch to manual. And then if Arizona does die or gets to low amounts of HP, then I will probably just take her off the flagship. It's not that big of a deal. But in terms of some ships and gear that you can acquire, one of them is going to be the twin 113mm anti-air gun that you can get on 11-4, and then you can also get some Helldiver prints on that stage as well. So I do recommend farming up 11-4. You can also get a decent amount of coins if you're not strong enough to start farming up coins in chapter 12 and above. Now, I could be wrong, but personally, I find that farming Helldiver prints on 11-4 is a lot easier than farming it on 3-2. So you could try farming 11-4 specifically for Helldiver prints, but you might be better off on 3-2 since the oil cost is a lot less and the levels are a lot easier. You can get Sondai on 11-3, I believe, and she's not necessarily good. She does have a niche use though, because she's the only ship in the game that has flares. So if you guys don't know what flares are, flares basically lower the evasion rate of an enemy that kind of falls within the flare radius, and it's mainly used for like World 14 purposes. So she does have a niche there, but otherwise not that good. Agano you can get from 11-2, which I'll be honest, she's not that good either. And then you have Columbia on 11-4, which you could obtain only from the boss. And I think she's fairly good for chapter 13. She does have a pretty niche support skill where she does decrease the damage taken for the flagship. But other than that, I think she's like fairly mediocre. And one thing I did forget to mention was that for chapters 9, 10, and 11, since there are a lot of suicide boats, you should probably stick some fire extinguishers to your vanguard or the main fleet to kind of counter the bird damage that you could potentially take from those ships. We're on to 11-2. I'm a little skeptical about our success. The only one that's really dying is Arizona. The ships are getting, I mean, they're slowly getting harder, but they're not substantially getting harder. It's level 105, but my boss fleet is pretty, I mean, we're all above level except for Kaga. Well, just as I expected, we beat the boss stage relatively easily. On to 11-3 now. Well, after I cleared this like 4 more times? Or 3 more times, but still. Past 11-2 relatively easily. I don't think the ships again are not going to be that high level. It's literally like 2 levels up. It seems like we're struggling a little bit. A lot of torpedoes are being thrown at a lot of suicide boats. We're gonna have to start manualing the boss node here, which is you know, it's fine. It was to be expected at some point into the chapter 11 run here, but we made it out alive. And we got an extra copy of Junia, which will help me retrofit her up, so I'm pretty happy about that. Alright, so 11-4, time to enter. I don't know why I spoke like Yoda there, but I did. Hopefully mob fleet can still probably be on auto, but the boss I'll do in manual, so we'll skip to the boss and see what happens. Here goes the boss, level 107. Mob fleet still doing, they're still holding strong. Alright, here we go though. Manual boss fleeting. Now theoretically we should be able to stay alive, but I'll be honest, I haven't really been playing manual with this fleet in a hot minute. It's been mainly auto farming, so I might be a little rusty with the sticks here. Okay, here's the boss. 99 bars of health. Holy cow. Okay, there's a lot of torpedo action going on, but it's okay. We can just use the planes defensively. No need to rush. We have 2 minutes to play with. Okay, I think if we just use our planes against their torpedoes, Sandai's torpedoes, I think it's GG easy sweep. And we can actually probably use our planes a little more aggressively. I'm just holding like 4 sets of planes, waiting for the torpedo wave. There it is. Should be dead in like 2 seconds. Maybe. There we go. Easy mode. Well, we're on to chapter 12. I don't know how far we're gonna get. I'm gonna guess that we're gonna die around 12-3 at most, maybe sooner. We are still running the same squad, and we are gonna be playing a couple legs down. But I've been here before, playing like 5 to 10 levels down back in episode 1 and 2, so this is nothing new for me. Nothing really crazy to farm. The best farming node by far is going to be 12-4. You can go ahead and farm Choke Guy there on the boss node, and they can also farm the twin 100 mm. That is a pretty good destroyer gun, IMO, because it gives 30 anti-air. Of course, it's not the best if you're going for like damage, so probably don't put this on Z-23 or any other firepower-oriented ship. I think some light cruisers can equip destroyer guns. Like I know Isuzu and I think Sandy can also equip this twin 100 mm destroyer gun. So definitely use that gun for them since their specialty is anti-air. And then you can also stick this on some heavy cruisers as well as like their secondary slot. Like I know for myself, I use this gun for Yume Minami, who has a relatively high anti-air stat for a heavy cruiser. Let's see how our anti-air's doing. It should be like exceptionally well because we have Portland and Helena, and my Helena is definitely my best light cruiser I have, at least geared up. I think all of her gear is basically leveled up except for the SG Raider that's on her. Which, speaking of, I do think that I should replace the SG Radar with a washer, aka the hydraulic, high-performance hydraulic steering gear. And there's a couple reasons for that. One of them being, since we are going to be running a heavy carrier formation for our boss fleet, it makes sense that we try to time up Helena's radar scanner up with our carriers. Now, before, the reason I put the SG radar on her in the first place was because the SG radar is just simply easier to obtain than the high performance hydraulic steering gear. And my thinking was that I just want to try to proc this thing as much as possible. Not necessarily trying to time it, because back then we didn't really have too much of a fleet going on. But now that I kind of have a direction of where I want to go, then I can kind of time my ships and start augmenting their gear, I guess you could say, or altering their gear from this point onwards. Also, we did beat the boss stage, so I'm pretty happy about that. I don't know how much health we had, I'll be honest, but the boss was Miyoko, so I don't think there were a lot of torpedoes that she was shooting. Mainly, probably cannon damage. So I don't know how much health we had left over, but I'm hoping we were fine. Alrighty, we're on to 12-2, baby. Let's get it. I forgot to mention earlier that on 12-2 and 12-3, you do have a chance of getting Junyu and Hyo. I think Hyo is on 12-2 and then Junyu's on 12-3. But I think we can just full auto here. Probably should move Arizona not in the flagship position. That way I won't accidentally die while I'm auto farming, but nonetheless, we carry forward. We're gonna be seeing if we can beat this stage or not, which we should. I'm feeling hella confident. All right, on to the boss, level 110. It's getting a little spicy, but I think we can take him. Easy auto, I think, hopefully. Please. Okay, well, newsflash, it was not easy auto, and I was not paying attention. I'll be 100% honest. We kind of just, our Vanguard just got, like, dead in, like, 2 seconds. Let's try that again, because our mob was doing completely fine. I think I'll just have to manual the boss. Here comes the boss, part 2. All I have to do is manual, and hopefully we should be fine. We should, right? Yeah, I think this is GG. Much cleaner run than last time. We barely lost any HP. And we're loving life. Enemy flagship defeated. Now I just gotta do this another 3 more times. Alright, that's not that bad. Alright, we're headed into 12-3. Now I did say this would be the point where I think we lose. But I don't know. We do have quite a bit of anti-air counter on the boss fleet, so we might actually stand a chance. Let's see how this goes. I think for now we try to focus on 1 unit if we can. They are pretty mobile, I will say. They don't seem to be doing too much surface damage. It really is just planes here. And it seems like we're handling it fairly well. That was... I mean, it was an easy win, definitely. But we had to play better. Last campaign stage for today's episode. 12-4. Alright, boss time, level 114. Mob fleet did really well. The boss is gonna be Chokai and Maya, so I don't think we have to worry about planes, since we're not gonna be running into Junyu Hyo double carrier for the boss, but there's still gonna be a decent amount of planes. So we should probably take care of them and accidentally let that boat get across. I'm gonna try to save my planes for the boss if I can. But the main gimmick here is that there's gonna be quite a bit of cannon damage. And I have played this enough to know kind of the enemy patterns, because I play 12-4 on hard mode on my main account. Or I used to play on manual. So I kind of know what's up and when to use the planes. Well, basically you want to use the planes once Chokai does her big AoE cannon move. And then you just kind of dodge bullets until you win, basically. We're not doing enough damage. Chokai's still at like half health. She just got half health. Even though I used a Hiryu plane. And her converging torpedo bombers landed on her. Okay, there goes Maya. Huge. We lost Portland in the crossfire. And we'll just slowly whittle her down. 57 seconds. Will we have enough damage? Oh no, we might not have enough damage to kill her. Okay. I think the plan is we need to wait for Helena SG radar, and then we go ballistic on her, on Chokai here. We gotta wait. I don't know when she's gonna proc it, but she needs to proc it soon. Okay, you know what? We'll just go in. 17 bars of health. Surely we have enough damage. Okay, there we go. A little close. Our damage output was really low, but we beat the stage nonetheless. I'm pretty happy about that. I have to do this 4 more times. And then after I do that, we're gonna move on into Operation Siren probably, and then I'll be explaining some Gear Lab stuff. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty, so we're gonna be doing Operation Siren. I still have a little bit of the story to go, so we're gonna finish the Operation Siren Story. And then we're gonna start doing maybe these abyssal fights, and then clearing all of the missions and goodies and nodes and stuff. So let's go ahead and do that. I know I said in the past that you were supposed to bullet through the Operation Siren Story and then go ahead and clear all the zones once you finish that. Now originally I wanted to do an Operation Siren section of, making a video where I basically do the Operation Siren Story, but I decided to discard that idea. So I basically cleared all the zones around it while I kind of waited and debated on whether I should record the Operation Siren Story. At the end of the day, I went against it, so that's why I have all the zones cleared. So let's go ahead and talk about some Gear Lab equipment. Now, originally, I was supposed to cover this like 2 episodes ago, but I didn't. And the reason being is because I wanted to originally focus on what gear that you should get specifically, but then I decided that it's gonna be different for everyone. Everyone is not going to want the same pieces of gear. There are some pieces of gear that I think you should go for 100% of the time, but the majority of the gear in Gear Lab is situational to the user. So in my opinion, I'm just gonna give you some tips on how to pick and choose what gear you should go for in Gear Lab. Tip number 1 is if you can farm the piece of gear that you're going for in Gear Lab somewhere else, then definitely do that. For example, the Ryusei plane. You can build the Ryusei plane in Gear Lab, but you can also farm the Ryusei plane in War Archive and in the PR research. So definitely do that. And there might be an argument to be made like, oh, it's gonna take forever to farm those pieces of gear via PR research and War Archive, but in Operation Siren, it's basically gonna be a long grind as well. You're not going to get the Operation Siren materials fast unless if you've been playing for a while and you have some stocked up. So either way, it's gonna take forever, and the best way to basically guarantee a Ryusei plane with the lowest amount of cost is gonna be through War Archive farming. Tip number 2 is check the value of the piece of gear that you're going for. I know that I valued some piece of gear in the past very highly, but after I did some research, it turned out that the piece of gear that I went for was pretty much like a very minor improvement to my ships. So for example, I've previously mentioned about the Flapjack fighter. Basically, I wanted to get the Flapjack fighter because it contained a 2 × 1,000 pound bomb, which increases the damage of the fighter. But I realized once I looked up the damage from the Azur Lane wiki, the damage output is only a 10% increase compared to, or not a 10, I think it's like 18 actually. 18% increase, a very minuscule damage increase compared to the Hellcat, which was what I was supposed to go for in the first place. So I don't think I made the right choice whenever I was thinking about going for the Flapjack, and I learned it the hard way on my main account too. Definitely do your research, go to the Azur Lane wiki, look up like list of gear, and then you go to like max stats or max enhanced, and then you can kind of compare and contrast the different damage outputs of pieces of gear. So that can kind of help you gauge of how valuable the piece of gear that you're using is right now compared to the gear that is in Gear Lab. Some pieces I think that are safe to build is going to be a couple of the UR stuff. One of them is going to be the Georgia gun, as I mentioned before, because you can build it now. It's like one of the best AP barraging guns in the game at the moment. You should also build a Wyvern as well. It's one of the best parallel torpedo bombers that we have in the game as well. Both are very high value items, so if you have the time and the patience to get at least one copy of them, I think that'll be great. Some of the purple gear I think is actually worth building, since you're not going to be using too much purple gear, or purple Operation Siren materials and blue Operation Siren materials too much in the Gear Lab. So if you find any transitory purple gear in the Gear Lab that you want to build, I think it's okay to build it. Just don't build too many, because at some point you're going to be like, yeah, I don't need all this transitory gear, so you'll probably just end up foddering all of it. But I think if you're in the mid game and you're struggling to get gear from tech boxes, I think it's a valid strategy. One more little tip: definitely stay away from the UR anti-air gun that's currently out right now. It's in the Iris Libre section. I'll leave a picture of it on the screen. And also the submarine torpedo, because they're both like super mid. Like, they're good torpedoes and good anti-air guns, but they're not pieces of gear to have ultra rare in general. You want to basically upgrade the gear that will affect your ship the most. So for example, if I have a light carrier, let's say Unicorn for example, I would rather build a Wyvern for her versus a UR anti-air gun. You know what I mean? Same situation for battleships. I don't really want to upgrade the secondary gun first, because the secondary gun is not going to be doing the main damage. The main gun is going to be doing the main damage. So I would rather have a battleship gun upgraded versus the secondary gun. So make sure your priorities are right for each ship as well. Ideally, for carriers, you would want to upgrade their highest damage dealing plane slot first. So for example, Hornet, she's a fighter-oriented ship, so you would want to upgrade her fighter plane first. Alright, so for the last part of Operation Siren, we're gonna go ahead and do an abyssal fight. We're gonna do Corrosion 4 here. I don't know if I'm ready, but I did rearrange my fleet a tad bit. So hopefully that will do something, because I think my 4th fleet earlier only had 2 ships. I don't really have a specific strategy for Operation Siren that's worth noting. I kind of just do these fights however I want to. I think in this situation, what I usually do is I go in with my mobbing fleet, open up and exploit the weakness of the abyssal fight, and then with my remaining fleets, those are usually specialized into certain damage. So this fleet is specialized into carrier damage, and this one is, I guess, kind of specialized into battleship damage. Obviously, I don't have a lot of battleships, so it's not going to be too strong. This fleet is kind of just whatever, and this fleet is my mobbing fleet. So the whole goal here is to at least knock the boss down to around 75% HP. That way we can exploit the weakness. Once we figure that out, we'll dive in and use the correct fleet. And hopefully, ideally, you would knock out the boss on your second go if your ships are strong enough, but I don't think that's the case for me. Yeah, pretty good. I think because I did another abyssal fight one time. It was the same corrosion level, and I think it was the same boss. I was only able to knock out like 75%, so I'm pretty happy about the progress we made here. Nearly half. And the weakness is carrier formation, thank God, because that's literally my entire main fleet. So we do have independence in this fleet, mainly because she gives an aviation buffs to basically all your carriers in this fleet and in other fleets as well. But if she's in the same fleet where you're using carriers, then she gives a bigger buff. 25 bars of health. I want to get her down to at least 10. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be possible. Oh, that's a little scary. Our mobbing fleet actually did better than our bossing fleet, which is kind of funny. Okay, so we only have two options. We have the Arizona fleet with an Akagi kicker and a decent vanguard, and then we got literal trash. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna beat this. We might have to regroup and rest, which I'm trying to avoid. But okay, there we go. 20. I'm happy. We can die in peace now. Which we are going to die in like probably 3 seconds. Oh, make that 0. All right. Well, unfortunately, we couldn't beat the boss, but luckily I have the power to regroup and rest. Gotta use this real quick. And honestly, let's go in with the mobbing fleet again. I think that did really well. It took 5 tries. That's not that bad. If we can reduce that to 4, it'll be smooth sailing from here. But we beat the corrosion level 4. That will basically show you my power level in Operation Siren and my knowledge. As you can tell, not the cleanest run, but you know what? It's about perseverance, not optimization. At least for now. Alright, so we're heading into the Swirling Cherry Blossoms War Archive. As you can see, we're about halfway to getting a guaranteed Noshiro. So we're just gonna go ahead and do D3. And we are going to be using these ships, mainly using these ships to level up, but also we need actual competent ships to beat the level. So I found out that this is the best kind of way to deal with this particular stage. I don't know if there's a better way, but this will do for now. As long as we're leveling up Arizona meta and Helena meta, then I'm happy. So let's go ahead and start, and let's cue a montage. So, cue the music. Alrighty, so we cleared up the Swirling Cherry Blossoms War Archive, and I did end up getting 2 copies of Noshiro, as you can see down here. And I did forget to mention that we did get Enterprise from the metal shop, and I used a couple of golden boolies on her. Now, I will probably be fully limit breaking Noshiro, so we're going to be staying on the Swirling Cherry Blossoms War Archive for a good while, unless if we get extremely lucky. And I will be oathing Noshiro as well, because that is one of the prizes for the Cube Tribute Jar competition. I think it was like the first prize, so I had to do something a little special. So Josh X 9706, look forward to that in the next episode. And I think that'll be all for today's episode. Real quickly though, I want to announce the winner of the Cube Tribute Jar competition. Firstly, though, I do apologize for not announcing it in the last episode, but just know that there will always be a competition as long as the episode that I publish is not a finale. So the winner of the Cube Tribute Jar competition is going to be Josh X 9706. I promise y'all this is not me. This is not an ult account, okay? This man's just extremely lucky, okay? He guessed 600 cubes, and I had around 619 cubes. So congratulations, fam. You won. I will be commenting down on your comment, or you can DM me on Discord and we can talk about a prize. So congratulations once again. For the next episode, we will be doing chapter 13, and apparently there's supposed to be an event next week. I think coming up on Wednesday actually, which is going to feature the Royal Navy ships, and I think Queen Elizabeth is going to finally get her retrofit. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked at the patch notes or the data mines, so if anyone does know, comment down below so that you guys can inform me. But anyway, that'll be all for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you support your boy, because these videos do take a mental drain on me and a physical drain. Like, why the fuck am I awake at 3:40 a.m.? Why do I do this to myself? It makes no sense. Love you guys. Y'all stay safe, stay fresh, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys next time. Love you guys, and peace.